Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and today we've got a returning guest, and he has a new movie that I've had the pleasure to see the screening, and it's called F. I have with us the director, Ash Hamilton. Ash, welcome back to the Horror Room.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on, man. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure, man. Listen, F was so much fun, but tell my audience a little bit about it.
Well, I'm a big fan of anthologies. I love Creep Show, Tales from the Dark Side, Laurel's Monsters, and I wanted to do an anthology that had this sort of interweaving sort of thread to it, and what it really does is it's supposed to be 5 tales that all take place on the same day. It just so happens that same day in this universe is the day that the world ends. So it's 5 stories. I can tell you from the get-go, not a lot of happy endings here,
No.
but yeah, 5 tales all taking place on the day the world ends.
And without giving anything away, so my favorite story is following this news reporter and her camera guy. I love that story.
That was actually mine. That was the one that I directed.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I was holding my breath there for a second. I'm like, how am I going to spin this? But no, everybody did such a wonderful job. But yeah, that was my story. And after doing a mockumentary, which is my first feature, which was Holes in the Sky. Like, first of all, I wanted to do something very different. Because that movie was, a very slow burn. It took itself very seriously at times. And even though that was my intent, I'm a big fan of 70s and 80s Italian horror. I'm also a big fan of 80s horror and splatter and stuff like that. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to show, obviously there's a different side of me as a filmmaker, which is not so serious and is very much showing the audience everything. When you get to like something like Holes in the Sky, we did a lot where we sort of pulled back and let the audience fill in the gaps with their imagination when you didn't get to see what you were wanting to see necessarily. And with this, it was not that. we decided to show absolutely everything that we could within budgetary constraints. We tried to show everything that we could.
Now, you worked with an amazing team. So what was it like to work on an anthology and work with so many creative talents?
It's a bit of like it's a potluck, and it's also a bit of a crapshoot where you're like, how much do you tell them? Like how much do you want to rein in? Because these other directors are very creative. Like Dylan Brown did the Tahoe Joe movies, which are great. Josh Brucker's got a lot under his belt already, and Ben Harlow's relatively new to the feature business. Did a great documentary that I loved, and he's a personal friend of mine. And these are people that when we have conversations, it's always sort of off the rails. Like it's very rarely a constrained conversation. We all talk about what we love, and we all get really animated. And I didn't want to stop that, like I didn't want to say, hey, we need to have it look this way. It needs to feel this way. So literally when I approach it, I approach it almost with the same like log line that I told you. I'm like, okay, we want 5 stories. They all take place on the same day. Here's my script so that we don't do anything too similar to it and that you guys have your own vision. And then I literally just like step back and just said, I totally trust what these guys have in mind. They would tell me little bits and pieces of it, and I'm like, you're good, move forward. And the more that we started to get the segments in, they all sort of came in at different times when people had the ability to shoot. We were like, no, this is, in my opinion, it was exactly what I was looking for, because we have a lot of different emotional platforms that we're developing from with each story. We're having some that are, more subdued, some that are more comedic, some that are more outlandish. So it's definitely this melting pot of a bunch of different influences, but all people that really like horror films. So these are people that have a background in watching and sort of, then trying to emulate and honor and pay homage to certain films. and I think you can see that a lot in here. You can see, like some of the comedy is going to probably remind you of some horror comedies you've seen, and in our instance, like there's a lot of action that I wanted to bring, which sometimes I don't think we see a lot in horror anymore. But we saw a lot like during the '80s. The action, horror movies of the '80s were very, very prevalent. But a lot of that process again was just like I've got 5 really good guys. I don't want to disturb their process. I want to let them do what they want to do. And I was like, I'm sure it's going to be great. And I was very, very happy with everything that we got in.
And let me guess, Dylan Brown's, because I love Dylan's movies. Was it the one with the survivalist guy?
That was actually Josh Bruckers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Dylan did Grandma. The next to last segment. The
My
woman desperately trying. I'm sure I've got an 11-year-old that always peeks then, like, are you live? And yeah, we're live. And that was, he did something I think really special with that. Really ratcheted up the tension with that. We had this very sort of narrow, beam of light to which a lot of that story is told. He did it. I think there was a lot of tension in that one in Grandma.
So how long did it take for you and your team to get these stories together and production-wise?
Production-wise, so I'll be completely honest in that I tore off way more than I could chew with what I was trying to do. And I had a couple guys that I was writing this with, friends of mine, because we all wanted to have this very big experience, especially towards the end of the film. Like we wanted to give people a summer blockbuster feel in a small movie. So we went about writing something that we had nowhere near the money to try to do, which is actually like the bane of the writer, right? Is writing for your budget. And usually I write for budget, and this one I'm like, let's write outside the budget and see how close we can get to. So after we wrote it, and after we had everybody on board, and everybody was contractually obligated, that was around this time last year. So we started shooting right around April. Some people came in a little bit later because they knew what time of year they wanted to shoot in when they had the availability of their actors. So we shot ours relatively quickly once we knew the locations that we had. And of course we had some actors that we had flown out that we really wanted. Robert Lasardo, for example, was one that we really wanted. And I've, known Robert for a few years, so I really wanted him to be this, sort of cult leader. And, he's got limited availability. So we shot ours over a period of about maybe 4 or 5 days, trying to get as much as possible in there. But to be completely transparent, like I was probably doing post-production on ours in one way or another through the remainder of the year. So the film's only really been done for about a month and a half. It took a lot of work to get a lot of effects in there. Our segment alone is very, very effects heavy, and to get that to work and to get it to work for a very small, micro budget film, we went the digital route on a lot of stuff, which is not only, not cheap, but is also time consuming. So we've been in production in one way or another for the better part of about 10 to 11 months, almost a full year.
Now, one thing you guys do a great job. This movie makes you feel like it's the end of the world. It makes you feel like shit just happened. Like from the sirens to the I mean, even in your movie when they put the camera down and like they're at a soccer game, and it's like, oh crap! It makes you feel like this is the end of the world. This is what the end of the world would actually look like.
I think one thing that I get very interested in is I get very interested in small stories that circle large events. Like that's sort of what interests me. doing a movie like Armageddon, for example, it's like you're with the people that are trying to stop the asteroid from hitting the Earth, or you're with a top level scientist that only has the technology to save the world. A lot of big Hollywood movies put you in this group, where you're seeing all of the exposition, why they're there, what they're going through, what they're trying to do. But let's face it, look, for like regular Joes like you and I,
Yeah.
We're probably going to be at something like a soccer game, or with our
Yep.
kids, or we're going to be getting ice cream, or we're going to be at work, or like, to me, that's the end of the world. The end of the world is all of these small stories and how it's affecting everybody sort of at the same time. And I thought, wow, wouldn't that be really cool if it's just regular people? I mean, in ours, we wanted to go with the really small town reporter who maybe isn't even all that nice sometimes. I mean, we just still try to give you something where she's endearing herself to you. But these people, these aren't acts of heroics that you see in a lot of this, because they're just trying to survive. And that was sort of the biggest part of what we wanted to do, was like, how can we make it look like everything just sort of happened, but you've got a camera in the middle of it? Like, how chaotic can we make it? Like, that was really, really my intention was, let's have the world end. And let's do it as practical as possible. I mean, during our shoot, we had almost like 80 extras coming and going and being all nuts and everything. And how do we take like a camera POV, and how do we weave that, like how do we navigate the end of the world, with cameras and phones and bounce back and forth and make that chaos happen. Because you see that chaos in bigger movies, but you always feel a little removed from it. You always feel like you're watching it from the safety of a plane or a satellite or whatever. And I'm like, nah, like, we can do something safe. Like, we got to be right there. It's got everything that happens has got to be just right brushing against our arm, or we're barely jumping back enough to avoid being hit by it. So yeah, that was something that we really tried to do with it, was like, how do we make this a big event in small spaces look big, with small money look big? It was everything. Like, it was this ever expanding, sort of contracting idea of how we make small things look big, and then how we make big things look small but make them look big. There was a lot of that, to say the least, which sounds super confusing, but there was a lot of that. Yeah,
but it was done great. Now, I mean, listen, we're just a couple years removed from COVID, and it seemed like, that was going to be something that was going to wipe us out.
Right.
Now, what do you think when it comes to the end of the world? Do you think it's going to be a disease that's going to take us out? Do you think it's going to be an earthquake? Do you think it's going to be a natural disaster? Or do you think it's going to be the zombie apocalypse type thing?
It's weird, because we're really all on borrowed time. This planet's been hit with stuff in the past. It's something even like the bubonic plague, for example. Like we've had major events that have dwindled our numbers to next to nothing. Like, it doesn't even have to be some kind of celestial body slamming into the planet. It doesn't even have to be something, because some people, depending on your faith, might even still believe in the biblical end of days. So there's so many scenarios that we can choose from. I think more than likely it'll probably be something that's more of a long game. I think that we're dealing with some weird fluctuations in population. And I'm not even talking about an increase. Like, we're actually sort of on the edge of this great chasm of depopulation right now. Sooner or later, we're going to start having smaller and smaller populations, but we've built this system around large populations. So we're going to have a weird supply and demand happen. I think we're going to have problems with people sustaining business. I think we're going to have problems with a society that's always been built around a population that's set to explode and expand. and I think we're going to get smaller. Things are going to get a little bit weirder. And I think once we start dealing with depopulation, we're probably then going to deal with any virus that wipes out a big number of us. That swath or that number of people is going to be an even bigger threat than when you have this very explosive population. So I think it's going to be something that is a lot of factors that are currently in the making. And I think it'll probably lead to social destabilization. I think that that's our biggest threat right now is social destabilization. And then people not being able to take care of themselves, people being opportunistic and advantageous and hurting other people. So I think that, man, that sounds so pessimistic, doesn't it? Like, it sounds so dour. It sounds horrible. But sort of like a Last of Us sort of scenario, I think might be closer.
But I totally agree with you. So the first thing is, the baby boomers. So I'm an old millennial, but the baby boomers, they made up such a huge, they still do. They make up a huge portion of the population. And I also work in the funeral industry. And listen, they have made the funeral industry a lot of money because they're dying off right now, like rapid fire. And that's a huge part of the population in the next 10 to 20 years are going to be gone. Absolutely gone. I mean, that's of our country is going to be gone. And you start looking at, the younger millennials, you look at the Gen Zs, they're not having kids. They're not repopulating.
Right.
At all. They're not getting married. They're not doing none of that. So I can definitely see, when you take a huge portion of the population and they're dying off naturally, and then, you have the what's left and they're not reproducing. I mean, I could definitely see, but also too, people are dying at a younger age. People are definitely not making it past their 50s.
Yeah. It's weird. I mean, I'm this dates me horribly, but I'm like way closer to 50 than I am to 40. And just in the past 3 years, I did not expect to see so many people that I know go. And it's been a lot, like way more than I thought. And it's a surprising number, which is very sobering, as you get older, realizing that, like we said earlier, we're all on borrowed time, but the fact that, when you start looking at us individually, we are all on borrowed time. It doesn't really matter, but yeah, it does seem like we're part of an age group that for whatever reason, and maybe it is that we're not subjected to things in the way that we used to be. We're working from home. We're dealing with really small numbers of people, so that when we do get something like a virus, it probably affects us a lot greater. I don't know. I think there's a ton of factors, but I think you're absolutely right. We're seeing people in an age group die a lot sooner, and we are seeing a lot of the boomers die, and that makes such a huge percentage of our population that I don't think we really know what to do when things get smaller. I think we know what to do when things get bigger, but I don't think we know what to do when things get smaller. And I think that it'll be a really weird learning curve. And let's face it, like, as humans and even as Americans, we're not good at flattening learning curves, like, at all. I mean, look at the bullshit that we're still perpetuating for decades and decades. Like,
yes,
like I can sit with my friends and we can talk about stuff, and we can laugh about really important things because we sort of laugh at them like, can you believe it's still happening? Like, that's sort of the joke with my friends and I. Like, can you believe we're still going through this shit? Like,
yes.
Can you believe that we're still dealing with just weird mentalities that you were for sure we were going to grow out of, that were going to be a thing of the past. And then, you look around you and you're like, wow, the asshole game is still strong. Like,
it's getting stronger. It's getting stronger too.
It's scary.
But it's getting stronger too. And I think, listen, I blame everything on social media, but I think it has to do with social media because social media is filled with nothing but assholes. I mean, I mean, it's over. Everybody has an opinion, and literally everybody on social media has their opinion, and like, not everybody needs to know your opinion. Majority of people, I don't want to know their opinion because it's scary.
being married, I realized that most of the time my opinion's not right. I I have to be very humbled and know that when I think it's right, still there's a good percentage of it that's wrong. I'm absolutely positive. Yeah.
Touche.
Yeah, it's humbling to say the least.
Now, one thing I'm excited and I love that you guys, Dylan Brown and Josh, you guys are bringing back found footage because found footage had a tough road for probably a little bit over a decade. After Blair Witch came out, which I love the Blair Witch, then all these knockoffs came off, and then it just watered down the product, and it got pretty shitty for a while there.
Oh yeah.
And now I'm seeing, especially in the indie horror scene, there's a huge resurgence of found footage, and it's some good stuff being put out.
There really is, and I think people are appreciating the fact that it isn't going anywhere. It might vary in quality over the years, but it's not going anywhere. There's still an abundance of it, and when done well, you can be very inventive with it. You can try new things with it. That was what attracted me to do the way that I did my part in this. Was I was looking for ways like how do I insert some songs in here? How do I do this? How do I do that? And still sort of make it work, like how do I use all in-world cameras? How do we do POV? And how do we make it work so that we're not taking too many liberties and we're sort of, sticking to this theme? I wanted also a movie that had a couple of very cinematic, traditionally shot segments, had a couple of very hardcore found footage segments, and then I sort of wanted to bridge that with some of what we were doing with the wraparound in the end by having different styles of camera, some that had a bit of a more of a cinematic approach, some that were very traditional handheld, going to phones, going to security cameras, etc. Because I think those two genres, the traditional horror genre and the found footage genre, try very hard to separate themselves from each other. And like I don't think we have to have that barrier, in my opinion. It's like come on, there's room for everything in there. So I'm hoping what we did was one of those few instances where people maybe who underestimate found footage can come into it and go, oh wow, look what they're doing with this. Or even people who love found footage to the point where that's their main medium can go, wow, it really does strengthen some of these more cinematic elements when you put the two together. So it was kind of our attempt, or my attempt, or I think it was our attempt to bridge these two subgenres of horror together and go, look how well they work side by side. And watching it, and of course, I'm highly biased, but when I was watching the film back, I'm like, no, this works. Like these different subgenres really complement each other well, and it's to me that was sort of the success of the project was, can we get both of those audiences in and have them look at the picture as a whole and go, wow, that worked. That worked, having both of these different kinds of filmmaking present here.
I'm thinking about something. I hope I didn't spoil anything. Did I say anything spoiling wise about the movie?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Okay. Good. All right. But it's hard to do. By the way, it's hard to do to talk about a movie that you've seen and not like say little things that might.
Oh no, I know. Like there's stuff about what we did that I get really excited about. There's one particular thing that happens at the end of the movie that's like that is usually the one thing that I don't talk about that much, because I'm hoping that people, like, first of all, I hope people come into the movie and they don't think it was made for $5. Like we tried to do as much as we could. Now it was a very small budget, mind you, but we tried to do things that bigger movies do in a really small movie, so that people who watch it aren't constantly sitting there thinking that it's low budget. We want people to watch it and go, oh, this is a movie that I would see on Netflix, or I would see on Shudder or something. Like that's sort of what the vibe that we were trying to give. And in doing that, we were unanimous that there was something we really wanted to do with the ending that you don't see in a lot of really, really small films. Talking about something of size. And
Yes.
that's been the only thing that we've been like, we want to tell everybody, like, no, you got to see what we did at the ending of this movie. But at the same time, we're trying not to give it away because we do want that holy shit moment, from the audience where they're like, oh my God, I can't believe that they did that, at the last minute. So, but we're horrible because like we get so close to telling people and then we have to back away. So we're always trying to just give them this bait where it's like, no, just wait. The last 10 minutes are crazy. Just stick around. So but I get exactly where you're coming from, especially with us because we are very excited about what we did. It is hard for us not to give it away and like screw ourselves. Like, oh my God, I can't believe we said that. But
because I was like, kind of something. I was like, did I just give something away? And I was like, well, hopefully no one noticed what I said.
I think we've skimmed the edges nicely.
Good. but so, I mean, the title's effed, right? Like you said, there's no happy endings for the most part in this movie. Everybody's movie is definitely effed. Everybody's movie is effed. So I mean, yes.
Yeah, there's I have this weird attraction to films where like something was supposed to stop like a zombie apocalypse and it doesn't. Something was supposed to stop a bomb from exploding and it doesn't. Like I kind of get the idea that if something were huge to happen, obviously ours has a very supernatural sort of, take to it. But if something was to happen, you've probably got like one chance of stopping it. And like, if you look at like the efforts of America's FEMA, for example, we're not always all that great. Even when we know like 3 weeks in advance that there's an enormous hurricane coming and we still manage to sort of fuck it up. So in my mind, it's like, no, it probably would happen. Sorry. I know people are looking for a happy ending, but it's like, no. I mean, the very nature of the film is that there are 5 no happy endings. There are 5 non-happy endings. Like, if you like happy endings, we are in a deficit of happy endings for our movie. Certainly.
Yes. And I agree with you. And it's a common theme that if you watch end of the world horror films, the government does not know what the hell they're doing at all.
No.
The government has no plan. In every horror movie, the government has. I don't know. I'm assuming it's probably like that in real life. The government has no plan. If something catastrophic will happen right now in this world, the governments have no plan on how to fix this, what to do, nothing. It's just like they're on the same page as you. Let's sit and watch and see what happens.
Yeah, I think they're too like mired down in bureaucracy. I think that's what's really probably going to be our undoing is that we're way too bureaucratic of a species to have any kind of real action, like at the moment that it counts. Yes. We've got to try to find out whose job it is, if they're getting paid for it or not. Is this overtime? Are they part of a union? And in the time that we take to do that, we're screwed. We're just absolutely screwed.
Done.
Yeah, it's not going to work for us at all. It's such a bleak, dismal look, but I think it's a realistic one, sadly.
Like I feel like if the Independence aliens came right in the sky, it would just be like the government would be like, oh well, and I feel like they know something. If that is a thing, I feel like the government knows about it, and I feel like
Travis, this is such a longer conversation. This is such a. I will be appearing June 8th and 9th. At one of the world's largest UFO conventions. I will actually be on a panel with one of the Ancient Aliens guys, because when I'm not doing this, I have the biggest tinfoil hat you've probably ever seen.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. But I definitely agree with you there. I wholeheartedly.
I feel like they 100% know. Okay, now we're on the same page. They 100% aliens do exist. They 100% know. And I don't feel like they have a plan in place for when they come and take us over. There's no plan. Let's sit and wait and see what happens.
Yeah, I think that they understand that there's a whole lot of lies that were told, and they're trying to spin a narrative on how to sort of backpedal and get out of a lot of that. I think, because I do believe that we've reached a point where it's probably inevitable. It might be, if not within our lifetime, and I actually believe it will happen within our lifetime, if not within our lifetime, shortly afterward. Like I think it's inevitable, and I think that that's the problem that they're having, is that they've spent a lifetime of PR on on the debate game. That's where they've been at. The entire lifespan of the phenomena, the government has been making sure that their position has always been one of disbelief and skepticism. And just within the past 2 or 3 years, like, haven't we seen some weirdness with our government when it comes to UFOs all of a sudden?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, they're not so quick to say that they're not real anymore, and now they're like, we don't know what they are. We know we shot a couple things down. They landed in a swamp somewhere, and they've even went so far to say these things could be extraterrestrial. You know, it's at the point where, like, when a little kid has shat their pants, when they're eventually just looking at you like, I might have. Like, it's like they're gonna tell you for like the first 10 minutes as the room is stinking up, they're gonna be like, I didn't do it. I didn't do it at all. And then, like, they know when you know, and they're like, maybe. And you're like, no, I know you didn't. It's like that maybe came out of your mouth. You shat your pants.
I like that analogy. That's a good one. That's a good one. That's a good one, Ash. That's a good one.
Yeah, that'll be the subtitle of my next book. It'll be The UFO Conspiracy. Pants Have Been Shat. And then it'll have a number of years, of the phenomena. But yeah, that's that'll be my contribution and my legacy.
Ash, where can everyone find you, my friend?
Everybody could find me personally. Just Google my name. They're going to find me on Facebook or Instagram under Horror Fix, which is also the horror site that I run. I do reviews and stuff on. So horror-fix.com is where you can find me, and you can find us Horror Fix on Twitter, all these other places. We're pretty much all over the place, and like I never sleep, so I'm usually responsive. Like when people get a hold of me, so if anybody's got questions about the movie, even about the first movie, reach out to me. I'm usually pretty responsive, and I'm pretty easy to find.
And how can everyone find your films?
Holes in the Sky is available almost everywhere still. It's available on Amazon, Tubi, Freevee, Redbox, Vudu, and like 5 or 6 others. Like it's a lot of places. Of course, if you want to see it ad supported but free, Tubi's the route to go for that. And I've produced a couple of other films. I produced, not directed, a film out of Canada called Camp Death 3 in 2D, which is a horror comedy that is still floating around out there, which is a lot of fun. I was a producer on that one. I've been a producer on a couple other ones, and Effed right now is in the festival circuit. We had a show last night in Chicago, and we were in LA for a couple of days, and we're just sort of started the festival circuit. So we've been an official selection now at almost like 15 festivals. We've won 15 awards, which is pretty insane for only being on the circuit for a month.
That's awesome.
So we've been pretty fortunate that people are digging it. I think people are maybe ready for something that's sort of like off the rails and chaotic and crazy, and maybe it's resonating with them. But yeah, there should hopefully be a place near you that will have the film playing at a festival, and we're working really hard to find the right people to help us put it out for a Halloween release. So I'm really hoping that it'll be available streaming VOD in time for Halloween, and I think we're going to make that. We've got a lot of interest in it. It's just going to be a matter of who we're going to go with.
Awesome. Ash, listen, it's been a blast, man. Thanks for seeing this screen. That's
Always.
a fucking awesome movie. That's a fun movie.
Thank you.
And listen, you, Matt Dillon, all you guys, listen, you guys, family, you guys can come on my show anytime. So, you know.
Well, fantastic. I always have a great
always
time, man. I can't thank you enough for having me on.
It's no problem, brother. No problem. Everybody, listen, go over there, follow Ash, go over there and listen, look out for, I want to say fuck, but it's F and follow all his other movies as well. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for coming to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce. That's Ash Hamilton. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.